Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It is time to have a look at the suggestions passed to developers for January of 2025, and I thought in this video we would give a special mention to the Object 432. Now, this video is going to go into a lot of technical stuff when it comes to the Object 432, which is a pretty interesting vehicle. This is basically a T-64 with a 115mm gun. It's one of the vehicles that eventually became the T-64 after, of course, all of the different prototypes, stuff like the Object 430, for example, that we've already seen. So sit back, relax, and let's enjoy the history of the Object 432. As always, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure to subscribe and also like it. Let's get started. The Object 432 tank was created in 1962 in Kharkov by the design bureau of the plant named after V.A. Malisheva, who was chief designer of A.A. Morozov, which was based on the latest achievements of science and technology of that time and had the highest combat properties among medium tanks mass-produced in the first post-war period. Development work on the creation of the tank was set by the decree of the Central Committee of the CPSU and the CM of the USSR dated 17th of February 1961. According to the resolution, the plant named after Malishev of the Kharkov Economic Council was obliged to redesign, according to the technical specifications agreed with the USSR Ministry of Defense, the medium tank Object 430, which was developed in accordance with the resolution of the USSR CM dated 6th of May 1955, ensuring the installation of a modern cannon on it, increasing the average speed to 45 kilometers an hour, as well as strengthening its anti-nuclear and anti-cumulative protection. In June of 61, the technical design of the tank developed by the plant, designated Object 432, was reviewed at a meeting of Section Number 7 of the HTC GKOT and at the plenum of the Scientific and Technical Committee of the GBTU. In March of 62, factory tests of the first prototype of the tank began, and in May of 62, the plant produced a second prototype of the tank for factory and also field testing. In February of 63, taking into account the results of factory tests of the first two prototypes, a third prototype of the Object 432 tank was manufactured for field testing. And in February of March of 63, in the troops of the Kiev military district near the city of Chuguev, tests of the third prototype of the tank were carried out. Based on the results of field and military tests of the three prototypes in March 1963, the decree of the Central Committee of the CPSU and the CM of the USSR on preparation for serial production of a new medium tank, or Object 432, and also the weapons for it, this was issued. The first 10 tanks of the Object 432, with the installation batch by the plant named after Malishev, were collected by March of 64, and by the end of the year, the number of manufactured tanks reached 90 units. In 1965, the plant produced 163, according to the chief designer's drawings, conducted in August to September 1965. Factory control tests of the 432 tank showed that the measures introduced into the tank design to improve the reliability of the engine, gun loading mechanism, and also weapon stabilizer did not ensure defect-free operations within the warranty mileage of 3,000 kilometers. During 1966, the plant carried out design and production modifications to the 432 tank, taking into account factory control tests and experimental military operations of over 150 tanks. In 1966, the plant produced 294 Object 432 tanks, and the resolution of the Central Committee of the CPSU and the CM of the USSR, dated the 30th of December 1966, the medium tank Object 432 was adopted by the Soviet Army and was given the name Tank T-64. The serial production of this tank was organized in the city of Kharkov in 1966 to 68. The Object 432 tank had a classic general layout with a separated crew of 3 people, a placement of a 115mm cannon in a rotating turret, and installation of a diesel engine across the longitudinal axis of the armored hull. A feature of the tank, which had a reserve volume of 10.5 meters cubed, was a high-density layout, as well as the smallest overall dimensions among medium tanks with a turret, especially in height, of 2.17 meters. This was achieved by eliminating the loader from the crew and using a loading mechanism, the low height of a specially designed engine, and the presence of a stamping in the bottom of the hull to accommodate the driver's seat. The internal equipment of the tank was located in 3 compartments: the control compartment, the combat compartment, and then also the engine transmission compartment. The control compartment was located in the bow of the tank hull. In the center of the control compartment, along the longitudinal axis of the body, was the driver's seat. This arrangement made it easier to drive the tank. To the right of the driver's seat, you had the right fuel tank and the tank rack, which were installed, and to the left, you had the left fuel tank and batteries with the starting and control equipment. The seat was fixed in 2 positions. You had lower, which was when driving a tank with a closed hatch, and then upper, which was when driving a tank with an open hatch. The design of the seat is provided for adjustment in height and along the body of the tank to install it in a position convenient for the driver. In front of the driver's seat, on the bottom of the body, steering control, levers, a fuel pedal, a gearbox release pedal, or the transmission pedal, and a brake pedal were installed. To the right of the driver's seat, a gear selector was installed on the bottom, and on the upper inclined nose plate of the hull in front of the driver's seat, there was a GPK-59 gyro compass, which ensured that the tank was driven along a given course in conditions of difficult orientation. To observe and drive the tank in a combat situation, the driver's workplace was equipped with 3 prismatic viewing devices, which provided the driver with the visibility in the 192-degree sector. The observation devices had electrically heated entrance and also exit windows. When driving the tank at night, instead of the central prism viewing distance, a TVN-2BM binocular night division sight was installed in the shaft. Cleaning the driver's viewing devices from dust, dirt, and snow, etc. was carried out using a hydropneumatic cleaning system. Above the driver's seat and the turret plate of the hull, there was a driver's hatch. The armored hatch cover was open and closed using a closing mechanism, which ensured the opening and closing of the hatch from both inside and outside of the tank. At certain positions of the turret, the driver's hatch did not open. The position of the turret, at which the opening of the driver's hatch was ensured, was depicted by red arcs in the internal scale of the azimuth indicator of the turret rotation mechanism. When the stabilizer was working, the driver could turn the turret by turning on the toggle switch to a position that ensured the opening of its hatch. With the driver's hatch open, rotation of the turret from the electrical drive was eliminated by opening the electrical drive circuit using a micro switch. Behind the driver's seat, in the bottom of the hull, there was an emergency exit hatch, the lid of which opened into the tank. In the fighting compartments, located in the internal volume of the turret and in the middle part of the tank hull, to the right of the gun, there was a workplace for the tank commander, and to the left for the gunner. At the tank's commander's workplace, a combined day and night commander's observation device, the TKN-3, and also 2 prismatic observation devices, the TNP-160, were installed in the rotating roof of the turret. The gunner observed the battlefield during the day through the TPD-43B tank sight rangefinder or the VNM periscope observation device, and at night using the TPN-1432 night sight. For the safe operation of the tank commander and gunner when rotating the conveyor of the loading mechanism of the gun, a cabin was installed in the fighting compartment. The cabin, which was a cylindrical welded basket, was mounted on brackets to the upper shoulder strap of the turret and rotated with it relative to the tank hull. The tank commander and gunner entered and exited through 2 hatches on the turret roof. The hatches were closed with armored covers. For communication between the fighting compartment and the control compartment, there was a hatch in the front part of the cabin along the longitudinal axis, which was closed with a removable shield. To ensure the movement of crew members from one compartment to another, 2 trays were removed from the M3 conveyor. In the rear of the tank, behind a sealed partition, there was an engine transmission compartment, which, due to its exceptional dense layout, occupied the entire volume of 2.62 meters cubed. The latter was achieved due to the central transverse arrangement of a 2-stroke diesel engine, with a horizontal cylinder arrangement and 2 crankshaft outputs in combination with 2 planetary onboard gearboxes, as well as through the use of an ejection cooling system for water and oil radiators. The main weapon of the tank was a 150mm smoothbore D68 tank gun, stabilized in two planes with separate case loading, with a wedge semi-automatic bolt of horizontal movement and an ejection mechanism for cleaning the barrel bore from powder gases after firing. Direct shot range at a high target 2-meter armor-piercing subcaliber projectile was equal to 1,870 meters, cumulative 990 meters. When firing direct fire, a TPD-43B monocular stereoscopic sight rangefinder with independent stabilization of the field of view in the vertical plane was used. The greatest effective firing range of an armor-piercing subcaliber projectile was 4,000 meters, high explosive fragmentation and cumulative 3,300 meters. The range measurement error in the range of 1,000 to 4,000 meters was from 3 to 5%. When firing at night, the TPN-1432 night monocular periscope sight was used, and when firing from a cannon from close firing positions, a side level and an azimuth indicator was used. The largest effective firing range using a night sight with an armor-piercing subcaliber projectile was 800 meters. The cannon was fired using a galvanic igniter or a mechanical manual trigger. The electric trigger was carried out by pressing a button located on the right handle of the remote control of the TPD-43B sight rangefinder, or a key located on the handle of the flywheel of the gun's lifting mechanism. Mechanical release was carried out by pressing a lever that extended outside the left shield of the gun fence. The vertical aiming angles of the gun using a hydraulic lifting mechanism range from -6 to +14 degrees. The rotation of the turret in the horizontal plane was carried out using one of two rotation mechanisms. When the electric drive was operating, the turret was rotated by a hydraulic rotation mechanism, and when the electric drive was not working, by a manual rotation mechanism. The horizontal aiming speed with the electrical drive running ranged from 0.05 to 18 degrees per second. With a manual drive, it depends on the intensity of rotations of the flywheel with the handle of the turret rotation mechanism. An azimuth indicator was placed on the flywheel of the manually driven turret rotation mechanism, and locking the turret relative to the tank hull in any position was ensured by a turret ridge lock with 8 teeth. The gun in the stowed position was locked using a special 3-position rod, which made it possible to fix the gun in a vertical plane relative to the turret in 3 positions. The cannon could fire either armor-piercing subcaliber ZBM5, cumulative ZBK8, ZBK8M, or high explosive fragmentation ZOF-17 shells. Armor penetration of BPS at range of 1,000 meters amounted to 250mm, 135mm at an angle of 60, and KS 450mm. A 7.62mm PKT machine gun was also paired with the cannon, which ensured effective destruction of openly located targets at a distance of up to 1,500 meters. To fire a machine gun, it was necessary to press the button on the left handle of the TPD-43B sight rangefinder control panel, or the button on the handle of the flywheel of the turret rotation mechanism. Effective firing immediately from a cannon and coaxial machine gun was ensured by the 2E18 Siren stabilizer, which had electro-hydraulic drives for stabilizing and aiming the cannon and coaxial machine gun in the vertical and horizontal planes. In addition, the stabilizer provided target designation from the tank commander to the gunner in the horizontal plane and emergency rotation of the turret from the driver's workplace. 3-degree gyroscopes, which had the property of maintaining the direction of their axis in space unchanged, were used as the master elements of the stabilizer in the vertical and horizontal planes. To ensure the combat rate of fire of the tank gun up to 10 rounds per minute, the tank was equipped with a loading mechanism. It was a hydro-electromechanical complex with a rotating conveyor, a feed system, a mechanism for catching the charge pan after a shot, and a dispensing mechanism. The loading mechanism ensured automatic loading of the gun with 3 types of shots with BPS, KS, and OFS in a separate case version. The M3 conveyor capacity was 30 rounds. The loading angle, which was constant, was plus 2 degrees or 48 inches. Conveyor rotation speed is 24 degrees per second. The duration of loading one shot depends on its location in the M3 conveyor, relative to the feed mechanism lever. The minimum duration of loading one shot was 6 seconds. The maximum, full turn of the conveyor, was 20 seconds. Loading the gun could also be done manually, with shots taken from the tank's non-mechanized racks. Inside the tank as well, there were stowages for an AK-47 assault rifle, a 26mm signal pistol, and 10 F1 hand grenades. The ammunition for the cannon consisted of 40 rounds. For the PKT machine gun, coaxial with the cannon, 2,000 rounds. For the 7.62mm AK-47 assault rifle, 120 rounds. The tank's armor protection was anti-ballistic. It provided protection for the crew and internal equipment from the effects of shells from foreign 105mm rifle tank guns from a distance of 500 meters at heading angles of plus 20 degrees. Combined armor barriers were used in the design of the hull and turret. When operating in combat conditions, side panels or screens were installed on the tanks. 3 right and 3 left side panels were attached to the left and the right track shelves in front of the tank. 2 more left and right front flaps were attached to the front folding mud flaps. The bow of the tank hull was welded from upper and lower inclined armored plates. The angle of inclination of the upper frontal part of the hull was 68 degrees, and it had a multi-layer combined structure. Between the outer and inner armor plates, there were 2 sheets of fiberglass. This relatively lightweight material effectively weakened the cumulative jet and flux of fast neutrons without causing a large increase in the mass of the tank hull. To reduce the likelihood of the tank turret jamming from ricocheting shells, bumpers were welded on the upper incline sheets and on the side cheekbones of the front sheet of the tank hull roof. To ensure the placement of the M3 conveyor in the fighting compartments with the maximum possible number of shots, stampings were made in the middle part of the vertically located armor plates on the side of the tank hull. These stampings at the front were protected by armor plates welded to the outside of the sides, and in the upper part of the stampings and overlays there were cutouts for the upper branches of the tracks. The roof over the MTO was a welded structure made of rolled armor plates and cast sidewalls. To provide access to components and assemblies to the power plant and transmission, the roof was raised upward at an angle of 29 degrees using a lever torsion lifting mechanism. The bottom of the tank hull consisted of 3 armor plates welded together, each of which was a stamped part with a trough-shaped cross-section. To compactly place torsion bars and increase structural rigidity, there were longitudinal and transverse stampings in the bottom. In addition, there was a stamping in the front bottom sheet, which provided the necessary height to accommodate the driver in combat mode. The projectile-resistant cast turret had a powerful frontal section with a closed perimeter embrasure for the gun and holes for a machine gun and a rangefinder sight. In the right and left halves of the frontal part of the tower, there were special cavities that were filled with aluminium alloy inserts. The roof and base tube housing of the sight rangefinder were welded to the top of the turret. To the right and left of the gun embrasure, in front of the exit windows of the rangefinder sight, special cutouts were made in the turret to provide the necessary visibility. The turret was mounted on the tank body on a ball bearing, which was an angular contact ball bearing, the rings of which were the turret shoulder straps. The upper shoulder strap of the turret support was also an integral part of the ball bearing of the conveyor of the gun loading mechanism. Between the turret and the lower shoulder strap, a rubber cuff was installed in the groove of the lower shoulder strap, which prevented the penetration of dust into the tank when the tank was moving, water during underwater driving, and also shockwaves and radioactive dust during a nuclear explosion. Protection of the crew and internal equipment of the habitable compartments of the tank from fast neutrons was ensured by installing a special material, or lining, based on polyethylene inside the vehicle. Additional protection for the commander and gunner was also provided by vertically located charges of artillery rounds, and the driver by diesel fuel located in the left and right front tanks. All these measures ensured a 16-fold reduction in the level of penetrating radiation. The tank was equipped with an anti-nuclear protection system, which together with the armor structure provided protection for the crew and internal equipment of the tank from the effects of the shockwave of a nuclear explosion by sealing the vehicle with automatic closing before the arrival of the shockwave of holes that could be open under operating conditions, such as ventilation hatches, blinds over the radiator, and also air cleaner. A high level of sealing of the habitable compartments of the tank was ensured by permanently installing sealing devices and automatically closing additional sealing devices. Permanent seals had the gun and machine gun embrasures, the ball bearing of the turrets, the MTO partition, the hatch covers for the crew members and the emergency exit, and the installation sites of observation and aiming devices. To protect the habitable compartments of the tank from the penetration of radioactive dust by creating excess air pressure in them and providing the crew members with purified air, a supercharger was installed in the right rear part of the fighting compartment. The supercharger was a centrifugal fan with inertial cleaning of dusty air in the rotor. It ensured the creation of excess pressure over at least 0.29 kPa and air purification from dust by approximately 98%. The main elements of the electrical equipment of the ESD system were the radiometric protection unit, the RBZ-1M, the X-ray meter DPZB, the supercharger motor, the KUV5 fan, and supercharger control box, the electromagnetic of the engine stopping mechanism, and the fuses of the squibs of the closing mechanisms, and in the tank's ESD system, special attention was paid to increasing the level of protection for the tank commander. During a nuclear explosion, the signal from the RBZ-1M radiometric protection unit was supplied to the KRPU relay box, and from it, voltage was supplied to the squibs of the actuators. When the squib in a special mechanism was triggered, the seat, together with the tank commander, quickly fell down, under the protection of the thickest armor of the turret. To extinguish the fire that broke out in the tank, a unified automatic triple-action PPO system was used. The fire-extinguishing composition, or 3.5, was contained in 3 2-liter cylinders. The system could operate in automatic, semi-automatic, or manual mode. To extinguish minor fires in the tank, there was an OU2 manual carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. An active means of camouflaging the tank was thermal smoke equipment as well, or TSA. This provided with the engine running multiple deployments of smokes or aerosol screens. To overcome water obstacles up to a depth along the bottom 5 meters, the tank was equipped with OPVT. The tank's equipment for underwater driving consisted of permanently installed and removable units. The following were permanently installed on the tank: seals for the hull and turret of the tank, sealing the gun's armor protection, exhaust gas bypass damper, drive to the flue damper, and to the air cleaner ejector seal valve, and 2 water bilge pumps with a capacity of 100 liters per minute. When overcoming a water barrier, the following were installed on the tank: a 2-section air supply pipe, 2-section exhaust pipe, gun muzzle seal, coaxial machine gun seal, exhaust valve sealing the blinds above the air cleaner ejector seal, sealing ventilation holes MTO, the valve for draining seal from the flue, check valves of water pumps, clips for fixing the handles and the blinds drive lever. Removable OPVT units were placed outside the tank as well. The installation of removable parts of the OPVT by the crew were carried out within 45 minutes, and after crossing the water obstacle, the time required to prepare the tank for immediate firing was only 1 minute. Movement along the bottom of the reservoir was carried out in first gear. Maintaining the given direction of movement was ensured by the operation of the GPK-59 gyro semi-compass and with the help of radio communication. In addition, the OPVT kit included 3 isolation devices for the AT-1 tanker. The basis of the tank's power plant was a 5-cylinder, 2-stroke, turbo-piston, high-speed tank diesel 5TDF liquid-cooled with direct flow purge piston gas distribution, horizontal cylinder arrangement, and counter-moving pistons. Maximum engine power weight of 1,050 kilos was 515 kilowatts. Power takeoff was carried out on both sides of the exhaustive crankshaft. The axles of the engine crankshafts were located transverse to the longitudinal axis of the tank, and the engine was mounted at 3 points using 2 rigidly fixed axles and 1 hinge support. The installation of the engine, unlike the installation of a V2 type engine, did not require alignment with respect to the transmission units, due to which it was relatively easy to replace in the field. The internal fuel tanks were filled with 815 litres of diesel fuel, grade DL, DZ or DA. The capacity of the front group of tanks, consisting of the left and right front tanks and tank rack, was 505 litres. On the left fender of the tank, there were 3 external fuel tanks with a total capacity of 330 litres. The outer tanks were welded from aluminium sheets, and each of them had a filling neck that was closed with a stopper. The tanks were connected to each other in series. Fuel was produced from the tanks through the rear tank, the pipeline of which was connected to the shutoff valve of the external tanks. Thanks to the relatively low specific fuel consumption of 238 grams per kilowatt hour by the engine, the highway range at one refueling reached 650 kilometers. To refuel the tank's fuel tanks in the field, a fuel refueling device was provided. The device consisted of a bow centrifugal pump. When overcoming water obstacles, it acted as a bilge pump, and a switch valve for water and fuel, a filling fuel filter, and a Durite hose with an intake pipe and a rotary elbow for the fitting. The air cleaning system used a single-stage cassetteless cyclone-type air cleaner with ejection removal of dust from the dust collector. The air cleaner was installed on the left side above the air inlet pipes into the engine supercharger. A full-flow fine centrifugal oil filter was used in the forced lubrication system of the dry sump engine. The filter was located on top of the engine block and was attached to it with studs. A continuous supply of oil to the rubbing parts was ensured by a pressure oil pump to create a given pressure in the system over a wide range of engine crankshaft rotation speeds. The injection oil pump had a capacity of 120 litres per minute. The filling capacity of the engine lubrication system was 75 litres. A feature of the liquid cooling system was the use of exhaust gas energy to create a flow of cooling air through the radiators. The use of an ejection cooling system in the air path ensured the compactness of the cooling system, its good self-regulation, and a reduction in the amount of heat emitted by the tank. 2 series connected tubular plates, water radiators of similar design, were installed in an ejector housing isolated from the MTO at an angle of 4 degrees towards the nose of the tank. The tilt of the radiators ensured complete drainage of the coolant from them. The filling capacity of the cooling system was equal to 65 litres. To cool the engine, water with a 3-component additive was used in summer, and low-freezing liquid grade 40 or 65 was used in the winter. Preheating of the power plant before starting the engine and maintaining it in a state of constant readiness for startup at low ambient temperatures was carried out using a heating system, the main element of which was a nozzle heater. The engine and power plant components were heated by liquid, and the oil in the oil tank was heated by the exhaust gases of the heater. In addition, to facilitate engine starting, the air entering the engine cylinders was heated using electric torch heating. The engine was started from 2 independently operating systems, from a starter generator or from an air starting device. If necessary, the engine could be started in a combined way, simultaneously with a starter generator and an air starting device, or from a tug. The air launcher was part of the tank's air system. In addition to starting the engine, the system ensured oil injection into the engine cylinders, operation of electric torch heating, and cleaning of inspection devices from dirt and dust while driving and on the spot. The sources of compressed air were an AK-150S compressor and 2 compressed air cylinders. The operating pressure of the system is 14.7 MPa. The mechanical planetary transmission ensured high average speed, good maneuverability, and maneuverability of the tank. The high efficiency of the transmission contributed to a large power reserve, and the use of a hydraulic servo transmission control system made it much easier to control the movement of the tank. The transmission consisted of 2 left and right final drives, 2 final drives, and a transmission lubrication system, along with a hydraulic servo control system. The design of the transmission ensured high operational reliability and did not require significant time spent on maintenance. Between 1977 and 1980, a portion of these vehicles underwent an overhaul to bring them to the T64A standard of the post-1965 production vehicles, with an exception of the gun, although some sources dispute that. These overhauled T64s are referred to as the Object 432Rs. The older machines were phased out and scrapped. The T64R remained in service until after the breakup of the Soviet Union, when most of them likely ended up in Ukraine. How many of these tanks remain is unknown. The importance of this vehicle for the Soviet war machine cannot, however, be overestimated. For all of its drawbacks, it was, at the time of its production, a cutting-edge design, and a relatively low number of them were produced only because it was very expensive and intended for core unit use only. The NATO units in Germany would face these tanks in case of any invasion in any direction, replacing the heavy tanks of old in the Soviet elite units. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.